Hey y'all, getting to the end of the year. That's great. I've had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you did too. Very thankful for the people at Hercule and for our clients and all the fun work I get to do on marketing and working with marketers who I love very much. So today I want to talk about auditing external mentions of your brand. So one of the things I'm going to start with is a post by Kevin White from 7 months ago that really stuck with me to talk about the sort of value of this stuff. But also, I'm going to talk about some of the tools that you can use to understand what the internet thinks about your brand. I'm going to talk about what those workflows actually look like, and I'm going to talk about what some of the effects can be of actually running those workflows and understanding it. So let me just share this screen, share this post. Let's do a little share screen. So Kevin White, who runs marketing at Scrunch AI, had this great post from the better part of a year ago, basically talking about how they changed the company positioning. And they changed the company positioning and the positioning that they were seeing people pick up on was still the old positioning. And what they were seeing LLMs pick up on was still the old positioning about what the company used to do and used to be about. And then things changed. And they needed to figure out what to do about this and figure out why that old positioning was showing up so that they could come to market with the correct positioning and the correct understanding for everybody about what they were about. So one of the things that Kevin talks about here is he says, they made a pretty major pivot. They went in all on positioning stuff. It was easy to change all the stuff. But even after a year of nonstop repositioning, cranking out content, the LLMs continue to cite us as a community platform. Most job candidates would mention a line straight out of the LLM results. So why did that happen? It happened, and you can imagine the effects, by the way, on their LLM visibility for those topics. They were probably showing up for the wrong topics and not showing up for the right topics. You could imagine search, you can imagine all sorts of other places when you're entrenched in your old positioning because the internet won't let you forget what it was. So what did they do about that? Well, they went through and looked at all their old content and they took down a bunch of stuff and they updated a bunch of stuff and they made a bunch of changes so that the things that the internet was saying about them that they did that, were not the things on the homepage and perhaps that they didn't even control, like stuff on external sites, they looked for all those things and they updated those things in addition to going back to their own library and editing all of their old posts and stuff like that, in addition to changing their homepage, changing their decks, all those other things. And that, if you find that post and you read it, that really made the difference, is going back and updating the library. Okay, so that's point number one to make is, what does the internet think about your brand? It's determined, I'll just write it up here too. It's determined by your homepage, but also a million other things. It's determined by your homepage and what partners say about you and your old content, all that stuff. So that exists. And since we're all thinking about LLM visibility, it affects that, it affects SEO. Great. So now I want to talk about what you can do about that. What can you do to update? And I'll write this up too as a separate little banner here. What can you do to update what the internet thinks about you? Two methods. We'll add that banner here and we'll show it up here just for anybody who's not watching. Okay, so method number one, which is the thing I'm going to spend most of the time on here, is using AI. How can you use AI to help you figure out how the internet perceives you and what you can do about it? So now I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk about a workflow that we use internally, but that we built ourselves, but you can build it or you can ask us for access to this one. And we call this the TMA workflow, not to be confused with the TMI workflow. And this workflow is in NAN, which is a great tool. Go check it out if you haven't already. And what this workflow does is it answers this question. Well, how does it do that? Start over here. And we put in some fields, we put in what the topic is and what the brand is that we care about and all that stuff. And then we have a node that goes to the internet, goes to Google. And the first thing that we do is we actually Google what that topic is in relation to your brand. So in Common Room's case, we'd be Googling all of their top content. We'd especially be Googling things that relate to what the topic is that we're trying to get away from. So if for them it's something like community marketing or whatever it is, great, let's look at that. Let's look at Common Room, let's see what ranks. But we're not looking for those things on their site. We're looking for them on external sites. And if I go here and I look at my HTTP request here, which is my node that goes out to Google and grabs the actual results, you will see that I have not specified a domain to look at. I haven't said, go look at our client's domain or go look at Common Room's domain. I've said, go look at any domain. Go put all the top search results for this topic and this brand. And you can do lots of different variations, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then we go out, we grab it. And this is where AI really helps, because if you go out to Google and you get a bunch of results, and then you scrape each result, there might be 100 of them. And then you need somebody to go into each result and say, does it say our old stuff or our new stuff? And this is where AI can really help. So this one is a prompt. Really, that's what all these break down to, is prompts. And it's a prompt that says, in this particular example, let's imagine a company called Yoyodyne, and YoyoDB is changing from open source to enterprise, whatever it is. I don't know, something like that. What is the relationship between Yoyodyne and YoyoDB is what we're asking Claude or ChatGPT or whatever you want to use, based on the content provided below. And the content provided below is the content on all the top ranking pages on Google. When you do this loop, which takes about 2 minutes if you have AI run it, and it will take you hours and hours and days to do, you will end up with something like this, where you've got a set of URLs and you've got its answer to that question that I just put out here. You can't see my screen. Once again, I got to remember to share this tab instead. There we go. Now you can see, here are the URLs on the left where your brand is being talked about. And then there's the answer to that question we asked ChatGPT or Claude or whoever in the middle. Does this need to be updated? What's the relationship? This says yes, which doesn't make a lot of sense given the question I just asked you, but you get the idea. Is what is the relationship between Yoyodyne and YoyoDB? The relationship is this. Here is the verbatim text from this page that talks about that. And then you have a column that says needs updating. And then you can prioritize, how far off is this? How do we reach out to these partners to get them to update that? Maybe we don't have control over it. We need to do something else. But this is how you do the external side. So let's call this offsite. And we'll add that banner there. Okay. That's what the internet thinks about you offsite. And this is a way that you can figure that out very, very quickly. And then you can go make your plan. So if I go back to Kevin's post where he said, oh my God, this is what LLMs were saying about us, and this is what candidates are saying about us. This is where they're getting the data, is not on your site. And this is how you at least figure out where that is so that you can make a plan. So that's number one. The next question is what the internet thinks about you on site. And there are a couple of different things that you can do here. So one is you can use a workflow just like this. And we talk a lot about the content linter workflow. And I'm going to see if I can get that up for you while I'm giving you this little presentation. Let's look up the linter. But you could imagine running something just like that, where the prompts are running on your own site. So let's add the screen back. And let's go there. But I mean, it looks exactly the same as the thing that I just showed you. And instead of using external pages, you're using internal pages. So this is an example where we're messaging the model with the contents of a page. And we're saying in this prompt box about 3/4 of the way down, we're saying, does this article mention such and such? Does it talk about such and such? How does it message us? Whatever the questions are. So that's another thing that you can do, is run it that way and figure out what you say on your own site, and then go back and bonus points, have somebody build you an integration that goes and fixes all that on your site and then pushes it back. And so it was something we do for clients sometimes. And, it can be done where, you have Webflow or WordPress or whatever CMS you're using. And we have a workflow that is additional steps to what I just showed you that extracts the content, updates it, and pushes a draft back for people to review. And that's how you can keep your brand and your positioning up to date on the site, which is great. Okay. But the other thing that you might want to do is go back and audit your own content library without using an LLM workflow and look at that stuff that's really performing well, or that's getting a bunch of views, which is not the topics that you want to be associated with. So if you're in Kevin's position and you're going from, we used to be a community marketing tool and now we're an AI pipe gen tool, you probably don't want to have your what is community marketing post up there. I know it's really painful to remove that stuff. If somebody worked hard on that, spent a bunch of time and money and all those other things, but you probably need to get rid of it or do something with it, or you might be able to save some of it. But if you're pivoting the entire company, then you're going to need to make some changes. And then I put my little Godfather gif up here, I think, because I was thinking otherwise you're going to get pulled right back in to that old positioning because your most popular stuff is going to be old. So how can you go through and look through your library quickly and find what those things are that are just completely off topic? So this is where the Aircule app actually really helps. And I'm constantly talking about this because it's our app and we love it and it's free, and you can go check it out on aircule.co. And you can build little lists of things like your recently updated articles and your declining posts. But the other things you can do is the Aircule app uses your Google Analytics data to build an index of your entire library. And you could do this in your CMS also, although your CMS won't give you performance data. Builds an index of your library, and then you can easily go through and look for specific topics. Like, I don't know, type strategy here, or I'll type universal analytics here. Here's a bunch of universal analytics posts that we keep up here for illustrative reasons, but I should probably get rid of these. 2-3 years ago, it might as well be a different epoch, a different time epoch, right? When marketing is concerned. But the Aircule app is really good at that, is letting you go through and scan your library and find those things that you might need to take down altogether, especially if they're performing really well. There's lots of other cool stuff you can do with the Aircule app too, like your keyword research and building other collections, like a campaign performance, all this stuff. But what you want to think about is, for those topics that are part of your pivot, do you have high ranking content for that? Do you have stuff, and are you prepared? You might need to do this to make the sacrifice or at least reposition that content. So let's do our little recap of 3 methods for dealing with messaging in a pivot. I'm going to show this. There we go. Oops, no, I'm not. Wait, am I? Okay, great. Okay, show that. This is impossible to use. Okay, great. Timer off. Awesome. Sorry. Thanks for letting me figure that out. Here's another good GIF for me to share right now, which is me trying to figure out this. Let's leave Vincent Vega up there. Why not? So recap of 3 methods for dealing with messaging in a pivot. And actually, let's change this a little bit to dealing with LLM visibility after a pivot. But if you've been watching this, that's not the only thing that I'm talking about. So one method is you can run an external content linter, and you can figure out, using that external content linter, you can have it go find the top search results for your brand, grab those pages and tell you verbatim what's said on those pages and whether it needs to be updated. And then you can build a strategy for that. That's one. Two is you can run that same AI workflow and you can have it run on your own pages and to see like, hey, this is a press release we did 3 years ago. We need to update the boilerplate. And extra credit, part of your workflow is pull it out of Webflow, pull it out of whatever CMS you're using the API, update it, and then push it back for somebody to review so you don't have to manually review it. So that's two. And AI can really help with both of those things, obviously. And then the third method is go back to your library and find that stuff that has lots of traffic and visibility for the topics that you don't care about anymore and update those things. So that's the third method. And that is what made me think of Kevin's post, because they saw a lot of success, I think, with all three of those things, but it's really, really important when you do a pivot to kind of tighten that all up. And AI, LLM workflows, and all these things can really help you do that. So I think that's it for today. This one's called Auditing External Mentions of Your Brand. You can see why I talked about that. I walked you through what you need to do and why you'd want to do it and what the effects are and some of the tools you can use and all that stuff. Thank you for checking this out. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll throw my email on the screen again here. You can also just visit us at erickuehl.co. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, as people say, which I don't know. Like, sure, have a great rest of your day, but I hope that you do enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.